That's
Who
right.
are your clients here in Mexico? Are you working with all the banks? Are you engaging with the broker dealers and the financial community here?
Yes,
Tell us about your road shows. Who do you meet with?
absolutely. So, Market Access is dedicated to the institutional market. So here in Mexico, we meet with all the banks, all the market makers are part of our platform.
Maria, it's wonderful having market access and you participate in this year's risk management and trading conference here in Mexico City. Tell us about market access for those that may not be familiar with its strategy, its mission, and also if you could get into your background and your role at market access.
Absolutely. And thank you for having me. It's great to be here. It's been a great conference with amazing, really talented people coming here and all the students really coming to the Financial Institute. So thank you for having me. I've been at Market Access for about 14 years. Market Access is a pioneer and a leader in electronifying credit markets, credit international markets. We started with US corporate bonds. Then from there, we went to investment grade, high yield, European corporate bonds, and then we went to emerging markets. And that's where Mexico comes in, and that's the reason I'm here. Within emerging markets, we cover sovereign bonds, cover corporate bonds, and also sovereign in local currencies. So we trade the local government bonds for Mexico, for example. And what's amazing to see is that it's one of our most actively traded.
Wow.
So it's exciting to see that around the world, it's one of the favorites. Mexico is one of the favorites, and so that's the reason I'm here. And about my background, I've been with the company for a few years, and before that, I was also doing electronic trading. I was prior at another platform that also did electronic trading for treasuries, and then prior to that, I was sort of a entrepreneur. I had a couple of startups on my own, not specifically in finance, but pretty close. And so I've always been in sort of fintech, or at least in the tech space.
Well, you have an impressive background and you work for a fascinating company that truly has modernized the industry. You spoke today here about the electronification of the fixed income markets. You participated on a panel with impressive market participants here in Mexico City, from banks to former exchange leaders here. Could you provide an update on where the fixed income market stands here in Mexico and what it's going to take to really drive the modernization and the electronification of the bond market?
Absolutely, it was a great panel. Great to be with all my colleagues in the panel, with Banxico, especially with Oriol, and with Jaime Cenizo, with all of them. So some of the things that we discussed is, where is it? And I think we're in the early innings of electronification of the Mexican fixed income market. We have seen growth, and we have seen growth at a pretty good pace. Last year, something like 1.3 trillion
Wow.
in Mexican pesos traded over our platform, from global investors as well as some local investors. So we can't say it hasn't started. It started, it's already going, and it's multiplying by the year and by the moment. So it's already in the early innings of electronifying. There's still a few pieces missing, and I think what's missing is more of the clout of the local investor to feel more confident to come into platforms and to trade. It's similar to maybe using WhatsApp, right? What took people to get there, and it goes little by little, pretty similar. There are a few elements that could be missing. I think something that the central bank has done here is to make the currency fungible globally, and that attracts global investors to invest in Mexican markets. It's also, they're able to deliver the bonds via locally in Deval or via Euroclear, and that makes it also very attractive. And it also has a very good portion in the EMGBI index, EMB-GBI index. So there's a few things that make it very attractive globally, and that's growing. And now we are also seeing some growth locally, which is really interesting to see.
That's fantastic. Where else are you seeing growth in the region? You oversee all of Latin America for MarketAxess, so explain where else you see momentum and the feedback that you're getting.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think what's amazing is that all the markets in Latin America are trying to electronify their markets, and I'm talking about Mexico, Chile, Peru, Brazil. We're seeing a lot of growth in Brazil, a lot of adoption. And what's really interesting is that that market is very intricate and complex. It has a very interesting retail portion that most markets don't have. Um, and it's becoming electronic, and people want to see more of it. They are trusting our RFQ platform, which is essentially like an auction. You go out and you request a price for a bond, and the dealers or the market makers come back with pricing. So in a moment, you have discovery
Price
of what's the
discovery,
best price. What's the
right.
best price? So it's easier for market makers to digest an auction than to put their prices on screens,
Right.
because it's a little bit riskier to put a firm price on a screen, but that's where it's going. So that'll be
That's
the
great.
next phase of electronification, I think, where everybody goes to a screen and looks at a screen with firm prices.
Yeah, I'd like to get into that a bit more. There's so many benefits with your bond platform. So just for those that may not be familiar, RiskMathics Financial Institute has a broad range of participants, students that really are looking at the markets and really want to learn how the bond platforms work. So maybe you could explain a bit about the benefits that you're seeing, that the clients here in Latin America are realizing with this electronification.
Absolutely. So there's a lot of benefits to electronic trading, and for us, it started with RFQ, which is basically replicating what people do on the phone. They basically go to their market makers and request a price. What this does is this: it collects all the market makers at once, giving you the best price at the moment you trade. And then that has diversified into other elements and other tools for investors. Now there's a way to do it with requesting dual market or requesting a switch trade, one bond versus another. There's a number of things that go into RFQs, not just that. But what goes with that is that you get the price discovery
Right.
that all the market makers give you, and then you also get um, efficiency in the way you do it, because you could send one bond or you could send 100 bonds at once. You get the prices back, and then you quickly tally what's best for you, and you trade.
So efficient
Very
and
efficient.
transparent. And that's really what was lacking in this industry. It was one of the last asset classes to electronify. So
That's right. That's
who
right.
are your clients here in Mexico? Are you working with all the banks? Are you engaging with the broker dealers and the financial community here?
Yes.
Tell us about your road shows. Who do you meet with?
Absolutely. So, MarketAxess is dedicated to the institutional market. So here in Mexico, we meet with all the banks, all the market makers are part of our platform. And then on the other side, the buy side, the institutional buy side. And that takes into account the Afores, the asset managers, any private banks that there might be, any Casa de Bolsas. All of these guys can be part of our platform and are part of our client base. And globally, pretty much the same. Every major investor in emerging markets or in credit globally are part of our client base. We have more than 2,000 clients globally,
It's impressive.
and yes,
It's a very
and
broad
growing.
ecosystem. So it seems like you have really all the market participants on the institutional side that
That's
are
right.
engaged and participating, and it's growing.
That's right. It's
That's the
growing for
key.
sure. And I think what grows is also the confidence,
That's right.
right? To do things electronically.
And that's something that technology brings to the industry. And that's one of the themes that has been touched a lot about this conference. And you and I spoke a little bit about AI yesterday as
That's
well. So perhaps you could highlight some of the innovative practices, the emerging technologies that you all are using.
Yes, absolutely. And I'd like to caveat with, there was an initial phase. I think we're almost graduating from that initial phase of electronification for the international markets and going into the second phase, which takes into account AI. We have AI for our sets of data, which are predictive. So now this price is going to tell you where the bond is going to trade next.
Right.
So the system is going to tell you where the bond is going to trade next. So that gives you a lot of confidence to go in and trade, because now you know a good reference of where you should get your price. So that's one aspect. There's a lot of automation that's happening, which is incredible to see, because you're right, this was the last market to go electronic.
Yes.
But now we're seeing a very good amount of trading that's being done fully automated, where the trader leaves their orders and the system has set the parameters, and now the system automatically trades for them. This is using AI for the pricing. This is using automation in AI to determine what trades and what doesn't trade.
Right.
And furthermore, some of the newer strategies that we're utilizing is we're giving our investors an algo that allows them to pick which protocol or which tool will be the best for their trade. And the algorithm will let them do that. And it's called ADX. And so that's starting to grow, and it's starting to take off in the most liquid markets for now. But it's great to see that evolution.
It's
From clicking on a button to now letting it do its thing.
And the reach it's had, because you've done a lot overseas. Could you explain the traction that you're getting in markets in Europe, APAC? I know that it's taking off there as well.
Absolutely. It started in the US, then it went to Europe. Asia's having tremendous growth. I think once they discovered that there was an easier way to do things,
Right.
They are all trying it, and they're all kind of growing with it. Different countries are well tuned in, and we're starting to see it in LATAM as well.
That's great.
But LATAM, I think, is probably the last frontier. I think that there's a little bit of fear of what's new, what's coming. But nevertheless, what we're seeing is that people are jumping from not doing anything electronically to do it in big size.
Wow. It's fascinating.
Which is a big jump. So I do see that evolution pretty quickly happening.
Lastly, do you see any restrictions with the market structure here? And are there other factors that play a role, like the geopolitical landscape? There's an election recently here in Mexico. There's an election back in the US. Do any of those factors impact the industry?
Sure. I do think that the U.S. metrics and U.S. decisions, Fed decisions, government decisions, have big impact on Mexican markets. So it definitely impacts it. But I actually don't see any regulatory restrictions for this market to grow. I think maybe a few elements are missing. Maybe more pricing, more discovery. I think that what the central bank is planning is a really good avenue for electronifying the market. So I don't think there's any restrictions other than people getting to know that there's that option.
And that brings me to my last point, education. We're here at this conference that's put together by RiskMathics Financial Institute. How important is this platform, is the role that they're playing here to really provide advanced specialized education in this derivatives industry, in the fintech space and beyond? What has been your impression?
Absolutely. I think it's key. It's so important to have a community that's well educated, that knows what their options are, that knows what are the different tools that they can use to grow in the financial industry. So I think that thank you for the invitation, because I think that this is critical for the growth of the community into a space and for the growth of its own market. So no, I think it's great to have institutions like the Financial Institute to educate
and to train the next generation too. Exactly.
Knowledge is a tool in itself.
Absolutely. So. And I know that the providing tools for investors is something that you all do quite well.
Exactly.
So hopefully there's a continued partnership, and I thank you so much for being here today, and hopefully
Absolutely.
We could continue to work together and see you back in New York.
Absolutely. Would love to come back. This is a great opportunity, and a great opportunity to talk about what the tools are. Thank you.
Thanks again, Maria.